Deoneocaocoleo acid, or DNA for short, is a molecule made up of teeny tiny little ladders to help the teeny tiny little construction workers keep our bodies up to par. When these ladders are put together in our body, you have to make sure you color code and letter every single step, otherwise they'll get confused when putting stuff together. As it turns out, even strawberries have these little ladders in them, so today I decided that I'm going to remove the ladders so I can watch the construction workers fall to their deaths. Anyway, all I'm going to need to do this experiment are obviously strawberries, but I'm also going to need some dish soap, isopropyl alcohol, and some white shit I scraped off the curb where there was a homeless man sitting. Before I get started with the main process, there's a few things I'm going to have to do first. The first thing that I'm going to do when I do the thing that I do first is I'm going to need to cool down some of the isopropyl alcohol, or isoproby for short. While that's cooling in the fridge, I'm also going to make some soapy salty juice. Ideally, you really want some unscented and uncolored soapy stuff, but unfortunately, the local dollar store didn't have any of this, and because YouTube's really been taking a shit on me as far as advertising, I'm gonna have to work with what I can get. Now, the mixing portion of this section is extremely important. You have to make sure you use the patented stirry durry, otherwise, the mixture will give off way too much heat and eventually explode. The whole point of making this mixture is basically we need something to simultaneously lube up the ladders so the construction workers fall, while also drying up all the cummy gummies so they don't have anything soft to fall on. Okay, with that other stuff out of the way, we can start our malpractice on the strawberries. I counted out 10 strawberries and put them all into an evidence bag. They know what they did. Something to also note, make sure you absolutely wear gloves during this part so you don't leave any fingerprints that could possibly be traced back to you. Anyway, with all the strawberries in the bag, it's about time we show them how the real world actually works. By doing this, I'm showing them that Uncle Vinny doesn't take kindly to people not paying him on time, and also removing the problem so it doesn't ever happen again. After a few minutes, their guts should be adequately strewn throughout the bag, and the message is ready to be sent to anyone who decides to double-cross Vinny. At this point, I'm going to add the soapy salty so I can finally get rid of those pesky workers. It really doesn't look like there's much going on here, and that's because there isn't. Normally, I'd explain all this sciencey nerdy shit, but if you don't know how a cell works at this point, you're kind of a fucking idiot. For those of you who are, all you need to know is that this shit needs to get yeeted. After a few minutes of squishing, what the fuck is that? Once the most gruesome act of war crimes I've ever seen is done, we can finally filter off all this random bullshit and get to the meat of what we actually want. Be careful you don't let the filter get clogged. And if it does, just use the good old teabag method. After this process is over, we can finally start extracting the DNA. To do this, simply toss all the isoproby in that we chilled earlier. Very quickly, you'll see a lot of this very stringy white stuff form at the top. To make sure this is DNA and not come from the strawberry after it took a very long hot shower, I decided to do the Shanhauer test, which is basically where you open your eyes and look at it. After some more mixing and looking, I let the mixture sit here for a while because fuck you, I said so. I transferred the cum DNA to another filter so that I could rinse it a few times and let it dry out so that eventually I can taste it. After letting it sit overnight on a hex code FFFFF piece of paper, it was finally dry enough to take a bite. Upon further inspection, I noticed that the poop nugget was quite hard. With that being said, I've put off eating this cum drop long enough. It's time to give it a taste. Okay, so here's the molly I scored off of my dealer behind the 7-Eleven dumpster. Let's just take out one of these little pills. And let's just pop that in the mouth. Ugh. It's definitely the most boof whack-ass molly I've ever had. Well, that was an absolute failure, but as always, huge shout out to all of my Twitch simps. I'll see you in the next video when I refine plutonium for use in nuclear weaponry.